Welcome to First Contact Stories of the Call Center. I'm your host, Christian Montez, where we dive into the lives that connect us all, one call at a time, revealing the stories behind the leaders' transformative journeys in the contact center world. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to First Contact Stories of the Call Center. Look, we dive into the fascinating world of call centers. So some of you may say, wait, fascinating worlds? Like, just bear with me, okay? We uncover stories that are unexpected, paths that are unexpected, hidden rewards. It's a really neat conversation. So as you know, I'm your host, Christian Montez, and today marks an exciting beginning of our new season. So we're going to be kicking off this in particular episode with a truly exceptional guest. We have Frank Mona the third, yes, the third. I'm sure there's a story behind that, who's a seasoned expert with over 30 years of experience in telecommunications and call center leadership. Now, in this season's opener, we're going to dive deep into Frank's rich career journey. Now, with that, though, we're also going to be exploring how he's navigated the complex dynamics of client relationship management, servant leadership, and the impact of technological advancements in the industry. But we're also going to get a little personal as well. We're going to step back from the professional. We're going to see from Frank's perspective, really what is the man behind this remarkable career. So sit back, relax, join us on this insightful journey, and let's have a good time. Frank, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Christian. Really appreciate it.
Now, look, if you've ever watched the show, you know that we got to know your story. You've spent over 30 years in this space. What got you into this space in the first place?
Well, it's a great story. Actually, totally by happenstance. I was in college, had accepted a job with a large food manufacturing company, and following in my dad's footsteps, had a slew of interviews scheduled, decided to go ahead and go on the interviews. Anyway, I ended up taking a job part-time, I thought, with a small little phone company that was selling phone systems to small and medium-sized companies in the greater Sacramento area, and ended up working for them for like 90 days, fell in love with the industry, told another company I'm not coming, and next thing you know, we're sitting here all this time later.
Isn't that the truth, though? I mean, you thought it was temporary. You know, there's this idea that it's like, I woke up one day and I'm going to work in this industry. No, that's not the common theme for most people. And so for you, there's this part where there's always this connection of the people you connect with, the passion of what you're doing ends up keeping you there. And it's not necessarily, some people joke, it's like you're held hostage in the industry, right? It's consumed you entirely. But other people really say it is their dream job and it is their dream career. Now, with that, though, I've seen that there's this idea that you really bring to the table about servant leadership. I really want to understand, when you say servant leadership, what is that? And when you talk about that, how has that really integrated into the philosophy of your leadership style?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll go back to my dad again, who was really my mentor and somebody that I had a tremendous amount of respect for, not only as a person, but also as a professional. He was the general manager as well as VP of sales for his company. And he was, again, in the food manufacturing business. So he ran a plant in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I saw the way that he interacted with his employees when I would do luncheons or family visits to the site. And it really made me realize that it didn't matter if it was the person sweeping the floor or the general manager running the actual plant on a day-to-day basis. He treated them with such respect and reverence and really understood them personally as well, that really inspired me to say, hey, when I eventually get into a leadership role, when I get into a situation where I have people working for me, I want to treat them in a similar manner. So while I didn't understand what the term servant leader meant at that time, it was servant leadership in action. And so when I, again, got in my career and started having the opportunity to manage people and manage organizations, I really applied that philosophy. And very simply for me, it is to be of service to those that either work for me or more recently in my career, my clients as a client services executive. And what that means is really that my job is to be a facilitator of whatever it is we're trying to get accomplished, and accomplishing it through people, not directing them, telling them what to do. Yes, there are times where you have to direct and tell people what to do, even your clients sometimes. But generally speaking, it's really about empowering them to be successful through guidance, through support, through empathy, through whatever it is that is required in order to be able to make sure that we're accomplishing what it is we're trying to accomplish. And again, whether that's meeting a deadline, whether that's hitting the KPIs and SLAs in a contract, whether that's helping somebody get to the next step in their career, whatever that might be, whatever that deliverable is, it's really being of service to again, either my client or my employee, to help them achieve that goal through empowerment and support, and just again providing my guidance in helping them achieve that.
So I can imagine, right? You're not going to run into too many leaders that say, "Yeah, screw my team, whatever." They're just this thing in the background that's a cost, right? You're not going to say, "Screw my customers," or whatever. Most leaders are going to say, "I care about my staff," at least in public, right? And they're going to
Of
say
course.
that they care about their customers.
Sure.
Are there any tangible things, like an example of like a situation where you'd say this is really servant leadership in its real form of how it's manifested in an organization you've had, versus here's when it's not. Here's when it's about just the leader or the bottom line or whatever ends up being the rationale people have when they're running their business. Anything in particular comes to mind?
Yeah. So I would two ways. One, a more recent example with a client situation. I most recently, let me start over again. So two examples. One with in a more recent client example. I took over a line of business that was really struggling, was not doing well. Client was not happy, on the verge of getting fired, and really had very little patience for us because we had gone through several leaders before I took over. And I immediately dove in, understood what the situation was by interviewing everybody I possibly could, including the client, and figured out what we needed to do differently. And within 90 days of that, we not only did we secure the business, but we actually ended up growing not only that line of business, but we also ended up adding an additional line of business, which dwarfed the line of business that we were trying to save. And we went from roughly 40 agents when I took over on this very shaky line of business to 800 agents on multiple lines of business within about 18 months after I first took over. And what really drove that was that I sought to understand what the situation was, and really, again, act as a servant to the client to understand what they needed for us to do differently, but as well as to understand internally what was going on as to why we were unable to perform up until that point, and what we needed to do differently in order to be able to make that happen. So with that kind of dual approach on serving internally as well as with the client, we were able to make magic happen and, again, turn a lemon into the proverbial lemonade. From a employee standpoint, I've had many examples, but this one goes back a ways. But I would say the one that I'm most proud of is when I was running marketing for AT&T West back in the day, and I was able to not only build a great team of people around me, that some of which I still stay in contact with today, but more importantly, I was able to help 4 different people on my team grow from literally just a first level manager into now, one of them is a VP with the company, and several of them moved into director and executive director roles over time, and that all just came out of creating an environment of success, of empowerment, of enabling people to maximize their capabilities. So I'm really proud of that, because it literally changed their lives, and it made our organization, of course, that much better. But you also asked the question, conversely, situations where that's not been the case. And excuse me, I have many of those, unfortunately, as well. But I would say, the cases where it that's been, I guess most impactful in terms of on a negative basis, if you will, have really been more with leadership above me not supporting what it is I'm trying to get done, and as a result, in effect, sabotaging what it is I'm trying to accomplish. So, I got to leave the names out of it, but I guess the point is that if you don't have leadership that's on board with you to create a environment that supports again the servant leadership mentality, then it becomes really challenging to be able to do that because you can only get so much done without the support of your senior leadership.
Yeah, I mean, so much to unpack. I'm sure we could have a whole episode on just servant leadership, but I think just to distill that down into we're really in the business of people, and you got to learn how to invest into people, whether it's your customers, whether it's your internal customer, your employees, and knowing that they're not just another number, right? There's a person behind it. And so I'm
Yep.
sure that gets a lot of people really wanting to buy into your mission, wanting to work for you and, understand that there's an investment into them. And, with that, you really talk about and emphasize the idea of having a robust work ethic and really a commitment to customer excellence. How do those values really translate into tangible strategies and practices that one does in the contact center that I'm sure, of course, right, reinforces this idea of servant um, leadership?
Yeah, so I think the way that it manifests, from an execution standpoint, again, whether it's internal employees or with the clients, is through execution. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, what do people care about, right? And in terms of the client cares about you're delivering on the KPIs and the SLAs and as well as the QA scores, however you measure those, to make sure that you're serving the client, properly, right, or serving their clients or their customers properly. So the way that manifests is through expert execution, right, and it's making sure that the people within your organization understand what is expected of them, and then providing them with the tools and the focus and energy and support, if you will, to be able to accomplish those goals. So and deliver on what it is that the customer is expecting from us. So and so the way that I've always approached that is that even as a client services executive, I get knee deep in what's happening on an operational level. So, and the way I've done that is through racking up a ton of miles, flying all over the world, literally, but being in the trenches, being in the call centers, being with the operational leaders, being down to the agent level, listening to the calls and everything in between, and really understanding how we operate, really understanding the culture. And then from that, being able to then understand how we need to come together as a team to be able to execute on what is expected from the client in terms of what we're delivering. So, so for me, I guess to net that out, it's really one, digging in and understanding the environment. Two, making sure everybody else understands what it is that we're expected to deliver. And then three, ensuring that we execute on that, not only because we want to hit the contractual obligations, but frankly, because we want to secure the contract for long term and as well as grow with other lines of business with them as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you really understand what's happening in the trenches at the ground level where the magic and the heroes work. And
Yeah.
if you don't take it straight from there, every layer back that you get it from can definitely change the message or even you'll miss key pieces. Now, you talk a lot about client relationship management. What does that really mean to you when you say that? And how does this actually apply to really ensuring success and satisfaction in the call center environment?
Well, for me, it's actually pretty simple. My job is to ensure that that I'm representing, my BPO to the client, and I'm the face, one throat to choke, whatever it is you want to call that. But what that means is that as the face and as that person, that everything that we mean to and everything that we want to represent to the client, I'm doing that on their behalf. So on behalf of the BPO. So for me, that is making sure that they know that our our best interests are their best interests, are making sure that we completely understand their business and frankly, hopefully know it even better so that we can provide value added solutions to them that maybe they haven't thought about or hadn't considered or it just wasn't on their radar yet. And then as well as laying the foundation that we not only want to just execute on a contract and be a transactional partner, but we truly want to be a business partner with you, a strategic business partner that wants to grow with your business and again expand out into not only taking on everything that you give us in this line of business, but as well as other lines of business as well. So and so the way that I've always done that is by one, demonstrating I know what I'm talking about and I understand the BPO operation, but two, that I build relationships with them through again site visits, through dinners, through phone conversations, whether it's one-on-ones or weekly business reviews, monthly business reviews, quarterly business reviews. But the whole intent behind it is not just to again provide spreadsheets and results and information, but rather that we are building something together, that we're building this team together, that we're building this strategic partnership together. Again, not only just to deliver on what's required, but to take it to the next level and really have a long-term partnership that we can rely each other on and be candid with each other on, and really again have a partnership that transcends just doing business. And what I'm proud of in my most recent role is I have two of my former clients that I'm still friends with. We talk probably once a month, text each other, have conversations, so again, those relationships really end up transcending just business, but really can turn into personal relationships that can extend far beyond the end of the contract.
No, absolutely. And I think as we talked about earlier, in the business of people, people move from one job to another. They get promoted. They go to other companies or other parts of the world. And as big as the world is, the business world that we're in, there's a lot of crossover, a lot of churn, a lot of moving parts. And so getting to know people and keeping a real relationship, not just a transactional relationship, I think you're right. It's spot on. It's super critical. One of the things you said about the way that you really embed yourself with the customers, there's an expectation that if you're going to exchange services or products for money, that it's decent, it's good enough, right, for what they need, right? They're going to give them a good enough service and support and so on and so forth. But that piece that I think is key is the fact that you're educating them and sharing with them expertise about things they didn't know that they could do or that they could implement, because they may have their list. Here's what I want to do that I can't do. Here are the things that I don't like. Here's what doesn't work well. Don't get me wrong. Everyone could be better or worse at that dynamic, but that other key piece is inserting those things where you say, have you ever thought about this? Other people like your space, your industry, your vertical are doing these things. And so that's really cool that you really know that that's an important part to your business.
Absolutely.
So let's kind of shift a little bit to the evolution of the call center, right?
Sure.
It's changed a little bit, right, over the years.
So just a little.
Yeah, right. Just a little. So from your side, let's talk about the past, and we'll talk about after that future looking. But from the past till, let's say, what's happening nowadays, how's it evolved? What's been going on over the years? And what are some big things that you think have really impacted how that model has serviced the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say that the biggest shift obviously has been the move from everything being voice, right? Every single call coming in had to be a call. There was no texting. There was really no even email at some point. Social media didn't exist, right? So it was all about the phone call and all about trying to provide a great customer experience over the phone. And in many cases, trying to explain pretty complex things over the phone that would be challenging to get people to understand because there was no way to share a screen or provide some other tool to help them navigate something that was not easy to understand. Granted, product sets weren't as complicated or as sophisticated maybe as they are now, but still challenging. So for me, then of course the whole focus was on tonality and making sure you were listening and making sure that you understood exactly what the customer needed so that you could answer their questions effectively, and get a great QA score, right? So really it was pretty. I don't want to say it was simple because it was not it was not easy to do that, of course, when you have hundreds of agents potentially all over the world all trying to execute on the same thing, right? So that absolutely was not easy, but the model was pretty consistent, right? I mean, for many years, it was a pretty consistent model in terms of what you were expected to do. And for the clients, for them, it was cost arbitrage, right? It was cheaper to outsource it. So pretty simple model. Then I think what happened was then you started getting, the whole evolution of Omni-Channel, right? So now you've got all these different ways that the customers can interact with you, again, whether it's via social media, text, email, whatever, right? And so now all of a sudden, not only do I have to make sure that I'm doing all the things that historically were even challenging to do from a voice standpoint, but now I have to do them on text, on instant messaging, on social media, on all these other and or automating the actual process itself through chatbots and other tools of automation. So all of a sudden it really moved from being really more of a customer experience and customer service solution business to really this complex logistical management morass almost, in terms of all the different tools that you have to use to be able to serve the customer, who ultimately at the end of the day just wants to get their problem solved, right? They have a question they can't get answered. They want to know where their product is, that it didn't arrive on time. They want to get their internet fixed because they need to do business from home. They want their TV fixed because the Super Bowl's on in an hour. So whatever the case might be. So all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over time, that the entire ecosystem changed so dramatically that again, what you had to. Your ultimate goals were still there in terms of what you're trying to deliver for the customer, but just became much more complex in terms of all the tools by which you had to deliver that experience. So for me, that's been the biggest challenge is, we can all look at reports and see how we're performing in all those areas, but it's really looking at the bigger picture of, okay, are we providing a consistent customer experience across all those different data entry points? Are we providing the best solution for customers, through those different gateways? And then again, how do I make sure that I've got the right skill sets and the right technology and the right integration and oversight to ensure that we are delivering on again, all those different pathways in the most effective and efficient manner. So again, it exponentially changed how we manage the business, how we manage the customer experience, and frankly, how we recruit and hire and train and develop people as well to be able to manage all those different aspects of the business, not to mention all the different technology partners and operational support that you need to be able to make it all happen.
This is James. James is a contact center manager with a passion for philosophy and hiking. As a kid, he made a promise to himself that he would always follow his passion. Today, he ponders on the thought that this promise is probably the best decision he ever made. Today, James loves his job just as much as he loves hiking. So much that he sometimes brings the scent of fresh pine and the tranquility of the mountain streams back to the office with him. With Nobel Biz as his company's provider, James found the necessary peace of mind to finally bridge the gap between his passion and his work. By choosing to partner with the promise-keeping voice and software provider of the industry, contact center technical issues, downtime, and poor customer experience are now a thing of the past. In an industry ruled by uncertainty, Nobel Biz combines balanced pricing with the highest quality, topped off with outstanding support. But above all, Nobel Biz delivers peace of mind to contact center managers and owners. And for the first time, James hit that sweet spot of focus and confidence that is allowing him to take his business to new heights of profitability and success. After all, you know what they say, promises are the uniquely human way of ordering the future. Nobel Biz, the promise keepers of the industry.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a whole other call could be done just on that. I think you're right when it comes to as people no longer just took a phone call from their house landline, their email sitting at a computer, the mobile phone, the ability to have all these different ways of communicating, the preference of how you want to communicate when, and then the knowledge, the fact that we know businesses have so much data on us, we get frustrated when we don't understand why is it so hard for you to figure out that this is the best way, best thing to talk about. And you should know me. You should know who I am. I shouldn't just be one of many. I should be one in myself. And so when I engage with you, I shouldn't have to be educating you about who I am, because that's a frustrating journey. So let's kind of talk about, as we move forward towards the trends and challenges and the opportunities for the future. What do you see now that we're in this world we'll call post-COVID for a minute, the post-major pandemic disruptive piece, when it comes to everything from employee engagement and recruitment to just how our call center is going to be running in the future? Any cool stuff you're seeing trend-wise or challenges that you think are coming up?
Both. Let me start with the challenges first. I think the challenge is going to be twofold. One, how do you recruit the right people that are going to be able to serve customers in this new world of Gen AI, which I know we'll get to, but how do you make sure that they have the skill sets and capabilities and just aptitude to be able to leverage tools that, frankly, we haven't really used before, or in the same way anyway that we haven't used before. So I think that's going to be a big challenge, and as we move into the future. I think the opportunities, though, are immense, right? I mean, the beauty of and again, I'll just use Gen AI since it's obviously the thing that we're all focused on in the technology space right now in our world, and that is that if we can leverage that capability effectively, and I think the jury's still out on that in terms of being able to do that, but the vision is that we're going to be able to do that, right? So we're going to be able to create tools that will again do a better job of identifying the talent that we need to bring on board, that will enable more effective and even personalized training to ensure that the agents are trained properly as they come on board, that will again provide a toolkit on how best to engage employees from an employee engagement and incentives, whether it's using more sophisticated gamification or whether it's just better, more effective leadership that's more personalized. But in other words, the whole point is that the intelligence that's going to come out of Gen AI will, I believe, enable us to do all of those things that much more effectively than we do them today, with all these disparate tools that we're using and trying to put together into something that is effective for everybody. So I think my belief is with Gen AI that it's going to enable all of these things that we're doing today in individual fashion, in a more integrated, effective fashion, because we'll have the more intelligence and insight and integration than we've ever had before. And then what that means from a customer experience standpoint, I believe, is then being smart about how we apply all that, right? So you can't automate everything. I mean, that's just not possible. There's too many long tail situations. There's too many situations where customers want to talk to a live person just because they just want to validate that what's happening is actually happening, or they just want to whine and complain and bitch about what's going on, whatever the case might be. So I think there's always going to be a need for that live communication, but I believe that there are going to be more and more use cases where we can automate them in such a way that it does deliver a great customer experience. Customer hangs up and feels good about it, or disconnects from their exchange or whatever medium they're using, and feeling good about the experience. They got what they needed, and yet we still have this, these centers of agents that are performing all the things that still need to be performed that either can't be automated or just require personal interaction. So for me, I guess I see this hybrid world of more efficient and effective processes, procedures, customer experience, user experience, everything else, combined with the power of what a call center has always represented, which is being there to provide the customers with that backstop to ensure that they're being served properly.
Yeah, I think right now the way that AI is going, especially with generative AI and otherwise, we're going to see some exciting things coming in the future. But I think one of the themes that I hear, right, there's always that question of, will agents go away and AI is just going to take it over? Who knows what the future holds? But I think you're right in the idea that there's still going to be a subset of conversations, complex, high emotion, preference, where a human being is still going to be required, right? And to your point of hiring, staffing, training, maintaining the excellence of staff that now has to engage in these much higher, highly complex conversations, emotional conversations, or even preference oriented, that we're not superstars today when it comes to self-service. Some people do it better than others, but there's still people that they find it as a blocking mechanism to keep you from getting to a person in resolution,
right?
Than it really is to be, because it is the most convenient and preferable method. Now,
sure,
that's just an opinion, of course, among several people, and I don't disagree with that idea as well. But I think one of the big takeaways from that is, though, where the AI used properly is probably, you're right, gonna offset a lot of these repetitive, easier mass communications that make sense when done properly in a self-service manner. I think you're also right in that the voice part of it is still going to be important, and that AI has a place in helping enable those conversations to be more successful. Everything from intelligence to real-time engagement to post-call, and there's going to be a whole bunch of there, even in training, onboarding, and continuous education. So super cool stuff. And I'm excited to see what happens in that arena. And I kind of want to shift a little bit to the fact that you really have a lot of experience in a lot of geographical diverse areas. And also when it comes to focusing on the whole concepts of onshore, nearshore, and offshore centers. Can we dive in just a little bit into the cultural aspects that differentiate regions, and even the dynamics of the a balance between when should you nearshore, offshore, and keep in-house? What are the differences when you look at the teams and the cultural differences of these different areas? Can you give some insight into that dynamic?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So probably the best example I could give was when I was at Sutherland, because my entire job was nearshore and offshore, and in terms of where the centers were that were serving my clients. And what I found was that so for example, in Canada, we had a center of excellence that was obviously very, Western. I mean, right across the border, and so virtually American, although very much they have their own culture in Canada, no doubt. But great bunch of people. But what I found, at least that for us in that spot, was really sharp people that understood how to take a idea, incubate it, and then export it basically to the other centers throughout the world. So, but again, and what I found there was that their caring and consideration and really wanting to understand how best to serve the customer, that whole mindset on top of some just really smart people that understood, technology and operations, we're able to create great solutions, again, that we could export to the centers throughout the world that we used. In terms of Colombia, I would say would be the next place I would go to. And that, they're very much a South American culture in terms of how, not only where they're physically located, but just in terms of how they operate. But again, because Colombia is the closest country to the U.S., definitely some Western influence there and connectivity to the West. But what I found there was a culture of again, of caring, of family, of really wanting to serve the customer effectively. So those agents were really good at really kind of a mix of providing great customer experience, but also having some tech savviness as well to be able to apply both of those together into a great solution for the customer, depending upon, again, what products and services that we were offering. Moving to the Philippines, I think everybody that's worked there or is worked with people there know that is a very warm, loving culture, and with customer experience and customer service really being what they're known for. And I certainly experienced that as well. Not to say that it can't do more highly complex or technically involved servicing of customers, but what I found where they really thrived was on providing, again, a great customer experience and really being empathetic towards the needs of the customer and understanding what they need, what their needs and wants were to be able to solve to their issues. And then moving to India, again, they're known for their tech savviness, if you will, and providing solutions on more highly complex data-driven solutions or tech support, field tech support, though, tier 2, tier 3, whatever the case might be. I found that as well. But it's also the culture there as well is very family-oriented, warm, loving as well. So what I found was there actually was, yes, there definitely were some cultural differences, but really at the end of the day, what I found was the commonality was really wanting to provide a great customer experience, whether it was more kind of data driven and more data centric on the India side versus maybe more customer experience and just providing warmth, if you will, from the Philippine side, and then Colombia kind of being a hybrid of both. Ultimately, it was all about delivering a great customer experience, and so for me, what I found to be the common ingredient to bring everybody together to provide a great experience, regardless of where the agent was to make sure that they understood the vision of what we were trying to accomplish, what the client needed us to accomplish, and how they could deliver on that solution in whatever fashion it is that they have the most proclivity for.
Well, considering you have vast knowledge of all these different regions, cultures, what drives people, what really is the mission that you want those different pieces of the puzzle to come together to create this master picture, I think it's really important. I think a broad brush that just says everything's the same and I just want it, cookie cutter, it's probably not going to work well for you. So it's good that you invested the time and effort to understand what each of the different places, cultures, people had to offer, which sounds like from your experience, like many, it's that there's wonderful people all over the world that all can deliver magical experiences. Now, with that being said, you have your own consulting firm, Francis J. Consulting, your own business, and everything is constantly changing and needing to understand and adapt to, what's the next technological change. What are you in the business really doing when it comes to strategies and innovations to stay, ahead of the game of everything that's going on and happening?
It's a great question. So I'm really doing a number of things. One, definitely attending webinars, reading ebooks, articles, every day, subscribing to newsletters. I mean, really diving deep on and staying on top of, whether it's Gen AI, whether it's CX, UX, you name it. I mean, there are so many changes going on as we speak that it's critical that I'm doing everything I can to educate myself and stay on top of that. So that's really the first thing I'm doing on a daily basis. Second thing I'm doing is talking to my clients as well. So the beauty of it is I've got clients literally all over the world. So I talk to them on a regular basis to understand, what's happening in their business, what's changing in their business. What do I need to be aware of in terms of serving them to ensure that I'm giving them what they need, whether it's the types of clients I'm bringing to them, or whether it's educating them on new technologies or capabilities that are coming out that they need to be aware of, or even in some cases bringing them solutions that maybe they weren't aware of as well, that would help their business based on our conversations. So for me, it's critical to maintain those relationships and be actively understanding what's changing in their world to serve them. And then thirdly, I think it's just looking more kind of macroeconomically in terms of just what's happening in our world from a global trend standpoint, in terms of how how the world's operating, if you will, right? And what's changing in our society, and in particular looking at whether it's Gen Z versus millennials versus Xers versus boomers, right? In fact, there was a recent study that came out that was fascinating as it relates to personal electronic use and feelings towards it. And what I was really fascinated to find out was that the Gen Zers look at their electronic devices with almost derision. It's fear, it's negativity, it's almost like, oh, I have to use this thing. Whereas the boomers are looking at these tools like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever used in my life, and my world is much better, and the way I operate in the world is much better. And there was a number of other findings in it, but to me, I think that was fascinating, because then it's like, okay, so if that's the case, then if I'm in the consumer electronics world, how am I serving those customers differently? How am I messaging to them? What improvements do I need to make in the product so that they don't feel that the boomers continue to love it, and that the Zers are getting, how do I get them to feel better about it so they don't view it with negativity? So for me, it's all those things combined to ensure that I'm staying on top of things, but also being able to add value to my client relationships by understanding what's happening.
So, in other words, you don't really do very much. Yeah, I mean, look, it's neat that you put them in three unique buckets, but I think the big theme there, which you were spot on, is you're gonna have to spend time and effort really involving yourself in a little bit of a lot of things.
Yes.
Right? It's not just passively focusing on one or two things and that's all it is. Now, look, work is super important. Investing into your work and your knowledge and all the things you said is huge. I think another key thing of this show is really understanding that there is time, I'm sure of it, even if it's just a minute, that you're not working, right? Yes. And I get it. You got to tell the world, no, I'm always working. I'm always doing my stuff. But when you shift away from that and you go to the personal side of it, what do you do with your spare time? Any hobbies, any interests, anything that you do outside of work to kind of maintain your well-being and, your perspective on life?
Yeah, great question. And I actually I do a number of things. One, I'm a huge sports fan, so I've been playing golf, virtually my entire life. So I love to play golf, love to watch golf, love to stay on top of what's happening in the golf world, particularly with this whole LIV and PGA Tour and everything else going on there. And it's kind of fascinating to see what's happening. I think it tells kind of a business story, but also an example of the evolution of what's happening just in sport overall. And then I again love the NBA as well. The Golden State Warriors are my favorite team, so watch them. And then from an NFL standpoint, huge 49ers fan because I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so love them. Very excited to see them in the playoffs, and really hoping that not only did they get to the Super Bowl this year, but that they actually win it, which would be great because it's been almost 30 years since they have, so would love to see that happen. And then beyond that, I just love to socialize. We've got a great network of friends that we socialize with, whether it's hosting parties or going out to dinner or going to our local club that we belong to, and just having enriching, wonderful relationships with them, along with my family, which is huge. I've got 36 nieces, nephews, great nieces and great nephews. So all over the country. So that's also enriching and definitely keeps us busy. And then I'm proud to say that I've been married to my high school sweetheart for going on 39 years. Yeah, we got married when we were 10. I'm kidding, yeah, we fell in love at a very, very early age, and still going strong. So obviously that keeps me busy as well.
That's great. And I think, that the balance of things that keep your mind occupied outside of work, the things that refill your cup is amazing that you have so many positive influences. And I think it's really important that a lot of people kind of find those pieces in life, whether it be hobbies, family, friends, things they do. Now, from a learning perspective on that personal note, right, is there really some major source of inspiration or influence in your life? In your life, I know you talked about your dad
Yeah.
as well, but I mean, are there any other people, or maybe it is you're going back to your dad being that big influence, in a life event or even a book or movie that's really been a driver for you?
Yeah, again, another great question. And yeah, no question, it was my dad when I was starting out, obviously as a child, and then as starting out in my career. And then as, my dad retired and became just really more like just my dad, I would say the person that really kind of took over that, inspirational role, mentor role, was my brother, Steve, who for many, many years was a senior executive within the golf industry, and is now a consultant himself. And really for him, it was twofold. One was his tremendous success in the golf industry that he's had, but and the relationships that he's built, and the things that he was able to accomplish. But the second part of it was he's even a better person and family man. He's got a large family, but he's always been there for them, and whether it's his kids or now his grandkids, and always made the time for them despite having a incredibly demanding job and very busy travel schedule and everything else, and the lengths that he would go to make sure that they were loved and cared for has been very inspirational. So for me, it showed that you can be very successful in your career while also being a successful husband, father, grandfather. So he continues to be that inspiration for me. And then, obviously there are other influences in my life that are very positive as well. But I would say it's my brother, Steve, that is that person for me today.
It's interesting, as you were telling, the way Steve has found, balance doesn't always mean 50-50, but it's when to balance what portion of things that are just your memories you're never going to get back if you don't find a way to prioritize them. Things that when you do have a demanding job, how do you balance that with the other important things in life? And it really reminded me of how you really have talked about the concept of servant leadership. Servant leadership isn't just something that you do in business. It sounds like there's not only influences it from your brother in personal life, but I'm sure there has to be ways where servant leadership also finds its way into your own personal family, friend, community relationships as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it really is a life philosophy. It's not just a business philosophy in terms of servant leadership. And, whether it is, in my own community where I live, there's a fishing club. I don't fish, but I play in their annual golf tournament. I sponsor a hole. I, donate to their causes and help them out just because I really like what they represent, and they provide a lot of clinics and different events for the children that live here, and to get them into a positive, healthy, activity with fishing. So that's really the driver behind that, as one small example. I guess a more personal example is we currently have my nephew that's living with us that has some challenges, and so we're helping him overcome those and really setting him up to have a more successful life. And that is no easy process, given, unfortunately, some of the things that he's experienced. But we believe that, my wife and I, that he needs it, and we're going to provide it. And so that's how we're serving him. And then, beyond that, I've been involved with many different philanthropic organizations over the course of my life, and always with the intent to leave it better than where I started, and whether that was helping found organizations or whether I just was a member of them or took a leadership role in them. It didn't matter. My whole intent behind it was to make sure that I was serving the purpose of that organization in the best way that I could, by investing my time, money, and effort into it. So for me, it is really a life philosophy, and those are some examples of how I've implemented it.
Well, it's great to hear, another way of really investing into other people and into your community. And it's a great way to have that as a life approach. And so with that, there's going to be so many people that have listened to this and said, I got to connect with Frank. I got to connect with his business. How do they go about doing that? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Really, probably the best way would just be emailing me at frank@francisjconsulting.com. And I check my email religiously, and from that we can set up time to get together. Obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn as well, as Frank Mona, and then we can communicate via LinkedIn messaging as well, whichever your preference is. But either way, happy to connect, and if nothing else, network and get to know each other. And then obviously, if I can help you from a business standpoint, happy to do so.
Well, that's fantastic, Frank. I'm so happy you came onto the show. It was great having you. And look, that really wraps another episode of First Contact Stories of the Call Center. So a huge thank you to you, Frank, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
It's been invaluable, and really appreciate the personal stories.
My pleasure, Christian. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us on First Contact Stories of the Call Center. If our stories resonate with you, please subscribe. Your support helps us share more stories that connect us all. Until next time, keep listening, keep connecting.